I couldn't believe I could see again. Everything was so clear. My mother, sitting at the wheel, cheerfully asked if I liked my new cyber eyes. If I liked, I was thrilled. Thank you, Mom. I was even encouraged to move to another city. A new life began. But then I heard the screech of tires. A car flew into the oncoming lane. I suddenly felt a sharp pain and passed out. I woke up in a bright room. My head was cracking. Some devices were making noise around me. Where was I? And then the doctor came in. So this was a hospital? I tensed, trying to remember what had happened. Wait! Where's my mom? The doctor hesitated a little, but then quietly said that she was in intensive care, in a serious condition. What? What intensive care? This can't be happening. Mom, the doctor sighed. If the culprit of the accident had not escaped and provided first aid, everything would have been different. Now we could only hope that she would survive. Despair consumed me. I jumped up from the bed and immediately ran to my mom. But suddenly I felt dizzy and almost fell. But the doctor immediately picked me up, saying that I needed rest, since after the accident, my condition might not be stable. And even more so, no one was allowed in the intensive care unit anyway. He led me back to the room, and I sat down exhausted on the bed. I was afraid. It was just like 8 years ago. We were going on a vacation as a family, and suddenly we got cut off by a drunk driver. I got a skull injury, and I lost my sight because of it, and Dad did survive. It was very sad for him, and this blindness. My whole world was plunged into darkness. I had to learn Braille and use a walking stick. If it wasn't for my mom, I wouldn't have survived this. She dragged me to the doctors, but in vain. And then, 8 years later, my mom learned about a new technology, electronic cyber eyes that connected to the cortex of the brain and allow it to see. Just like how a video camera and a projector worked. I was so happy, but the surgery cost a lot of money. My mom worked 3 jobs to earn money for my new eyes, but the savings were still not enough. And after a couple of weeks, the experiment was closed. There was only one option left: to sell our property and house. Which was what we did, which was why we had to move to a rural town and buy a tiny house there for pittance. So, just a month ago, I had the surgery. Now, I had super eyes. I could see for great distances, even in the dark. My vision was 100 times better than before the accident. I thought I was going to start a new life. But now the only dear person, my mom, was dying. The slam of a door snapped me out of my reverie. The doctor came into the room, and I froze in suspense. What was wrong with Mom? The doctor was silent, but finally exhaled and reported that she had passed away. I was stunned, and I wildly wanted to cry. But I felt that, alas, there was no tears in my cyber eyes. That was it, a new life. But I was left all alone in it. A week later, I was released from the hospital and sent to an orphanage, despite the fact that I was only 3 months away from coming of age. I thought about my mom all the way, knowing that I couldn't be happy without her. Upon my arrival at the orphanage, the neighbors stared at me intently as I unfolded my suitcase, and then one of them abruptly threw off my things, hissing that they didn't like new people here. Before, I would have been angry, but now I didn't care. But the neighbors were not satisfied with this. In the evening, they threw my things on the closet and angrily said that I had lived with my parents all my life, and I had nothing to do with them. Orphans. I tried to avoid the girls and keep quiet, but they decided to force me out at all costs. And the next day, they pushed me into a toilet stall. I sat there for 3 hours until the cleaning lady let me out. I was so hurt. At night, I cried without tears and increasingly hated the culprit of the accident. I began to study poorly, especially in mathematics. In class, I did not listen to the young teacher, Mr. Hobbs. I thought only about my mom. One day after class, he gently asked if I needed help, but I snapped that if he couldn't get my parents back, he couldn't help me. I was inconsolable. 2 weeks later, sorting things out, I suddenly came about a family photo. On it, we were smiling happily. I remembered my mom saying that there should be sunshine after rain. The thought of her made me feel so warm inside. If she were me, Mom would probably try to make her life happy no matter what. Clutching the photo to my chest, I suddenly decided I will be happy for you, Mommy. First of all, I had to solve my problems with my studies and pass all the exams with excellent marks. I would start with math. I spent the whole night working on my textbooks, and I answered all the questions in class. Mr. Hobbs couldn't hide his surprise. And when I approached him after class and asked him with a smile to explain the topic, he almost fell off his chair. It looked like he saw me with a smile for the first time in his life. Mr. Hobbs happily agreed and patiently explained the topic to me, and then even offered to help me with the preparation for the final exams. I was so grateful to him. Gradually, we began to communicate more often. Sometimes after school, we stayed late and chatted about everything. Mr. Hobbs was very nice. He was always joking and cheering me up. Being around him only confirmed my decision to be happy. I didn't cry at night anymore, thanks to Mr. Hobbs. Once, he even came to my defense. Seeing that the neighbors were pushing me, he threatened them that if they did not stop bullying, they would be on duty in the dining room until the end of the year. Then I asked, Mr. Hobbs, why are you so kind to me? To which the teacher just smiled and suddenly suggested to address him by his first name, Dino. And to my question, he said that he could not stay away because our fates were similar and he also lost his parents. His mom and dad died in a fire when he was just 5. My heart sank. I took Dino's hand impulsively and he smiled. You can't bring back the past. You can't waste your life on suffering. That day, for the first time, I decided to open up to anyone and told Dino about the accident. For the first time, it was without tears and not because I had cyber eyes. I let go of the pain and wasn't sad anymore. But for some reason, Dino drooped. That night, Dino told me I was in for a surprise. I was burning with anticipation. He told me to close my eyes and led me up to the stairs. I still couldn't guess what kind of surprise he prepared for me. Then we stopped, and Dino said, "Open your eyes." My breath caught in my throat. We were standing on the roof of a building, and the night city was in full view. Dino took my hand and led me to the set table. It was my first date in my life. We didn't stop talking all night. I couldn't hide the butterflies in my stomach anymore. Did I fall in love? Every day, I only became more convinced of this, and I could no longer hide my feelings. One day after school, I got ready and blurted out to Dino, "I like you." I forgot how to breathe as I waited for an answer. What if he rejected me? But instead, he suddenly hugged me, whispering that he also liked me. Dino said that he was the happiest with me, but then he hesitated. Something jumped in my chest. He pulled away. If the principal found out about a relationship, he would be fired. A lump rose in my throat. We would have to wait until I was of age. In the meantime, we would hide our relationship. It wouldn't be long now. But I was still always trying to be alone with Dino, and he could secretly hug me while no one was looking. Once, I stopped by the school office to see Dino, and when he came, I realized that I wanted to finally kiss Dino, here and now. In the next second, I pressed my lips to his, and he answered. A storm of emotion swept over me. And then the door slammed. I recoiled as if scalded and looked back. The principal came into the office. He gave us a stern look. "What are you doing here?" My cheeks burned. If he saw the kiss, Dino was finished. But Dino casually said that he was explaining the topic to me. God, if only he believed it. The principal was silent for a long time, and then ordered to leave the office and study in another place. He had a meeting there. The rest of the month in the shelter, I was burning with impatience, so I wanted to date with Dino freely and finally be happy. And now, I was 18. By law, I could be completely free. So the very next day, I moved in with Dino, and finally we were together and not hiding. I was happy. In the evening, we were watching a movie together for the first time when Dino suddenly asked about my mom. I told him with a sad smile that she was the best. She did everything for me until the accident took her away. At this point, Dino tensed. But I didn't think much of it. I often dreamed about the accident after that night. I could almost see the culprit's face when I woke up in a cold sweat, screaming in terror. I was so afraid that I would never get rid of the nightmares. Sometimes, when I saw the children with their mothers, I remembered my childhood with pain in my heart, and only Dino could support me. But he was getting more and more anxious. Little sleep, almost no food. I didn't know what was wrong with him, and I thought it was me. But Dino always said I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. One day, I received a notification about a routine inspection of my cyber eyes. At the clinic, a kind and caring doctor examined me and said that everything was fine with my cyber prostheses. The accident did not affect them. And then he added cheerfully, "Have you mastered all the functions?" I looked at the doctor blankly, and then he explained that the eyes could do a lot of things. For example, take pictures of everything I saw and save it in the IP cloud. Didn't I know? I was shocked. So the eyes recorded everything that happened from the moment of the surgery? It hit me. The accident was in the cloud, which meant I could find the scoundrel who had taken my mom from me. Confused, I hurriedly thanked the doctor and rushed home. From the doorway, I called out to Dino that I had news, but he interrupted me and excitedly told me that he also had something important. I froze in horror. Was he going to propose to me? But Dino was too anxious for that, biting his lip and tugging at his sleeve. He suddenly asked me to sit down and with a sigh began the story. He said that not so long ago, about the same dates in which my accident occurred, he had a similar situation. He was very tired and lost control, because of which he drove a little on the oncoming lane. He abruptly returned to the right lane but was afraid and did not stop, hoping that everything was fine. My heart skipped a beat. Did our accident happen because of Dino? He touched my palm and said that he wasn't true. But there was a chance that the accident was caused by him. He covered his face with his hands and said that recently he was constantly tormented by doubts. He had nightmares, and at the sight of me, he began to go mad more and more. And now he found the strength and decided to confess. Something snapped inside me. If Dino was the culprit, how could I live with it? But it could not be him. Just his situation was similar to ours. Because he was not sure, I sniffed and remembered about the recording for my eyes. I could find out the truth. Dino asked me quietly what I wanted to tell him, but I said the doctors checked the eyes and everything was fine. Then I went up to my room and turned on my laptop, quickly finding the recording from the day of the accident. Here it was. My heart began to beat faster. I put the cursor on it and I clicked delete the video. I knew Dino not as a killer, but as a kind and sincere guy that I loved, and I didn't want to ruin our happiness. A couple of weeks later, I was standing in front of Dino in a wedding dress. I made my choice, and I didn't doubt it. The past couldn't be brought back. My present was Dino. He was my long-awaited happiness. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.